Hello, cousins. Welcome to another episode of Respectfully. I am here with an icon, a legend, a writer, a speaker, one of the most impactful entrepreneurs who come out of Africa. She is the one, the only Magatte Wade.
Thank you so much, Xavier, for having me. And I hope you don't mind me calling you Xavier because it's a way your name was intended to be pronounced.
You know, that's actually how I prefer my name to be pronounced.
Oh, good.
But, you know, I don't tell anybody that because I'm already extra. And it's like you add the name onto it, too. It's just too much going on.
Oh, sorry. Well, for today, though.
Today.
Yes.
For today. And maybe next week. Who knows? I might stick with it.
I hope you stick with it.
So I have so many questions for you, and you are a very busy, powerful woman, so I know you have a flight to catch. So let me get right into this tea. Actually, I'll take that back. I have to say something first. Something that made me so excited to interview you is I was watching your super viral appearance when you spoke in front of Congress. And you said a lot of incredible things, but one thing that I loved is you said it so casual. You were like, pardon me.
By the way, English is only my fourth language, so when I trip on words, please excuse me, you all.
I was like, you better go. Did you mean that to be a light flex?
No, I didn't. And as a matter of fact, I was very serious because, especially when I'm trying to be serious about something, I have to tell people English is only my fourth language because in case there are things that don't make sense, I also, so no, I was not. I think people thought I was just, I don't know
I loved it.
The words we can say, B-I-T-C-H, like word. But no. I was really, I was just being plain honest.
You know what? Cheers to being unintentionally that girl.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This, by the way, it's delicious.
Thank you.
When you were telling me about it, at first I was like, what is Xavier talking about now? But now I see, it's not too sweet and you can tell the ingredients in it are really good.
Very good.
Yeah. No,
See,
good.
people
Thank
think
you
it's
so much.
overrated. It's like money well spent.
Well, I thought you were being overrating this thing, but no, it's true.
I might tell a joke, but I never tell a lie. So let's get into this tea. So I want to ask you, I feel like you're the perfect person to ask. There is this long-standing narrative that Africans do not like Black Americans. What do you think of that?
Oh, that's a big one. So I wouldn't say so much that it's that Africans don't like Black people. I really believe that there is a misunderstanding between these two sides of a Black family. I call the African immigrant, which I am. You're an African American. But it's two different sides of a Black family. Us, traditionally, we stayed in the motherland. You have been taken away from the motherland to here. And somewhere in the process, we lost touch of who we are from one another. So I remember I was very, myself when I arrived here, my tendency was to not trust African Americans. It really was because we get trained back home. I'm just going to talk for myself, but sadly, I think it's a lot the same for many Africans. From back home, we are told that, it's very sad because they're like, oh, these African Americans, they have no culture. And I think what it is because the biggest thing that the outside world and other Africans can see of African Americans is more the urban Black, and I would say even more, I don't even, we call it this way, but the urban Black ghetto culture, that's what we
call it
see.
Ghetto here.
That's
Hood rattery.
That's what we see. But the problem, I think where we went wrong is that not understanding it's not representative of the rest of the Black American culture, whatever you want to call that. And so when you see the behavior of a minority being presented to you as if it is the behavior of a majority, then you tend to think that this is what the majority is. And so a big bad stereotype was created there. And definitely for me it was as well. So our parents are like, be careful of these people. They're violent. They're scary. They don't like to study and all of that. That's pretty much what we're told about, African Americans. So it took for me to come to this country and to be dealing with everyday African Americans to be like, wait, what? And then even myself start to see for myself, oh, okay, there is definitely this urban Black ghetto culture that they're talking about. And, but there is also all of these other African Americans, millions and millions of them leading and running amazing lives, raising families, building businesses, being, great professionals. I mean, I didn't expect that. And so for me, that's what it took to change my mind. So I think, especially the music industry is what has caused a lot of problem, as well as Hollywood also has caused a lot of problems in terms of sending the stereotypes to the outside world. And then conversely, I think Hollywood and just the media in general has done a very good job also of depicting the other side of a Black family to you guys. I mean, when I first came to this country, I had some African Americans who were asking me if I had pet lions, and also how did I get to this country? Because they think we don't even get on planes or anything like that. This was the first time, I was asked some of these questions, or people making some of these, remarks. And so, and also them thinking that, that same thing, they're thinking that we're these extremely poor people. It's one thing to be poor, but them also thinking we're these ignorant people who don't have access to education or anything like that. We eat weird things and all of that. So we've basically been told the same thing about each other by the same people. Yeah. And so when I discovered that, it was a big awakening for me, and that's when I started myself going towards more African Americans, and also started going towards more people who were supposedly part of a community that is called, the Black urban ghetto culture, and then trying to really understand what's going on over there. And I've had some amazing friends who come from that side of the community. And so, so to answer your question, I was raised to not like and to not trust and to not value African Americans. But the reality of just being here, being with African Americans, made me realize this is all a lie. Talking about lies, when you make it that a little minority, like how a minority behaves is the way the majority behaves, you might be right about how that minority behaves. It's true. But if you want to make it the truth about the whole thing, you lied. And so that's what I discovered. And I'm not proud to say it, but it is. But I have to be honest, when you ask me the question, I used to be, I think, a bigot towards African Americans, and wanting nothing to do with them, because I was fearful for my own life when it came to them. Just come to understand, as all groups, you have a subset who doesn't, do good things and doesn't behave a certain way, but that shouldn't be an indictment on the rest of the community. So that's where I am today, and I've got friends all over that are not African immigrants and that are African Americans, and I love a lot of what I'm seeing. So, and I hope that at some point we can reunite the Black family in this way. I really hope, and I think it's going to happen by more African Americans coming to Africa, and more Africans having a chance to interact in real life with African Americans. And because I think the day we do that, we'll be a much stronger community as a whole. And we have so much to teach to each other. I mean, I learned a lot from the African American community here, and I also believe that there's a lot we can also teach to the African Americans. And we can just exchange, and compare notes. So I think there's a really good opportunity ahead of us. And I think even you and I sitting here and talking about this, I think it's really great. And I think these type of conversations need to happen more, because we're clueless about each other. Let's be honest.
So true.
Yeah.
Honestly, that could not have been any more perfect of an answer. And because it addressed so many of the follow-up questions that I had within that question too. And, there's this whole discussion here about Pan-Africanism and like getting back tied into our roots and all of that. And then there's people who will jump in and be like, well, the Africans don't even like us. What I really think it is Africans and African Americans, we don't understand each other. And there's such a disconnect there. And then there's a bit of a identity crisis that a lot of Black Americans have, because we feel like our culture was stripped away from us, which objectively that is true. But that being said, it's like we then at the same time try to create this new vision of what our roots actually are without going to see our roots and going to figure out the truth. You talk a lot about in your book, The Heart of a Cheetah. You talk about a lot of the lies, particularly when it comes to poverty in Africa. If you could erase one narrative or one lie about poverty in Africa, what would it be?
If I could erase one lie, it's that, or maybe let's take it the other way around. Actually, if I could erase one lie, it would be that Africa is poor today because of colonialism. That's the one I would like to erase. Has colonialism played a role in setting us back? For sure. But 60 some plus years later, but the fact that we're still poor has nothing to do with colonialism. And that's really the argument I'm trying to make. Because if I have to agree with that argument that Africa is still poor to this day, and that I think that's a piece people don't hear. Africa being poor today, it being due to colonialism, like so many people want to believe, Africans, especially the Pan-Africanist, then that's a mistake. Because you have many, and first of all, this is also another one I want to put out there. Africans have this tendency to walk around and believe that it is us Africans, and African Americans also, I think, do this, thinking that we are the only bodies of people who have been colonized and or put in slavery before. No. Enslaving each other and colonizing each other is as old as humans on this earth. We have been doing this to each other for the longest time, regardless of skin color. And so that's one thing I think to understand. Perhaps in our psyches, in our collective psyches, we tend to then think that only Black people have been colonized or enslaved. Because if you look at the history of humanity, we're probably the last big group of people that have been enslaved and or colonized. So people then think we're the only ones that have ever been. But that's not knowing history. If you know history, you'll know that the norm was for humans to enslave and colonize each other. That's just what has been going on forever.
Right.
Forever. So I think us understanding that will ease a little bit the pain and the resentment that we have, rightfully so, about having been into slavery and having been into colonization. Another thing that I want to do also about the slavery part, this idea that it's necessarily white people enslaving Black people. I want to say, if you have an issue and you're going to put it around race when it comes to slavery, it's about time we start to question the Arabs enslaving Black people. First of all, it started there. And to this day, yeah, right. And to this day, it is still going on in some countries like Mauritania. Mauritania, I think it's one of the last countries that supposedly stopped having slaves. And we're talking about less than the last 20 years that they stopped having slaves. But the reality is they still exist.
Yes.
So this is also where I would love for Black people, if we're going to go there, let us open the whole thing.
Okay.
Let us open the
Wake
whole
that
damn
up.
thing. No, seriously. Because this idea of, we're just going to incriminate white people and then we leave aside the biggest, some of the worst offenders, as if we could do a hierarchy, them, when they would enslave, when they would take us under slavery, they cut your thing. Us, we're like they sleep around with us, and any child that comes out of it killed. No mixing of, the horrors that happen over there, no one talks about it either. So we almost cut them, give them a pass while always focusing maybe on the white people. If you want to go into complaining about slavery,
right,
which I decide not to spend my time on. It doesn't mean that I don't recognize what happened. It doesn't mean that I am upset about it, but it stops there. What can I do about it? It's you and I are here. We didn't go through this. It doesn't mean that we should not recognize what our ancestors have gone through. But we also, in that, need to understand that everybody's ancestors went through something like that in different parts of our, human history. And so once you understand that, you honor it by not forgetting about it. And not forgetting about it means also so that we try not to repeat this going forward. But beyond that, you and I have a duty to focus on today and on tomorrow, because that's the only thing that we can do something about. Right. So those are the things that I would say about that whole slavery thing. And so I think I went into there, but your question was, and if you can bring me back.
That was perfect with the question. It was just, touching on some of the lies about slavery that are happening in Africa.
Thank you. So that's why, why the biggest lie I want to be put to rest about why is Africa poor, and when people need to add today, if it's not clear enough for them, they need to add, why is Africa poor today? The biggest lie we're being sold about it is Africa is poor today because of colonialism that happened some 60 some years ago. For most of us, it ended 60 plus years ago. My country, we're going to celebrate the 65th anniversary of our independence in April, and many African nations got their independences in the late 50s. Ghana went first, and then most of us were in the early 60s. For most of us, so that reason why that is a lie is because there are countries that have been colonized, and they change their fate. Botswana has been colonized. Look at Botswana. Botswana, for the longest time, has been one of the best performers in Africa. You have countries like even Rwanda. Not only were they colonized, but they also had to go through a brutal genocide that ended in 1994. So literally yesterday. And Rwanda today, one of the best performers on the continent. So what I'm trying to say here is, my friend Bishop Omar used to say, no matter what happened to you, you're responsible for what you do for you. Right. So yes, colonialism happened, but we see countries all around the world, who have been colonized, recover from it. Vietnam has been colonized by the French and bombed a couple times. Down, nothing. Look at Vietnam today. So this is my point. Yes, we have been colonized, and yes, it sets us back, but being set back doesn't mean you can never catch up and leapfrog.
Right.
So why we're not catching up? Why we're not leapfrogging? And then people say, "Oh, it's because we're neo-colonized." What they mean by neo-colonization is they're saying that, "Oh, don't worry, the ex-colonial powers still have power over us. A lot of our industry is in their hands, like the French especially is in their hands. Total, the gas industry, they're here. They own most of our industry. They get to decide which leader we put in place. If we have a good leader that's going to do some work, they kill them. All of it. I hear all of that, and yet I'm not willing to accept any of this stuff. Why? Because there's one thing that has not been tried. Poverty. Because that's what we're asking about. Why is Africa poor today? Well, the simple equation is very simple. Poverty is solved by prosperity, not poverty alleviation. So poverty is solved by prosperity. Prosperity is built by entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs need an enabling business environment. They need a business-friendly environment. It makes sense. If you want something to grow, you got to give it the right environment that's not going to be hostile to it. Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. In the world of economists, we call it a business-friendly environment, and for people who want to be more technical, we call it economic freedom. So the conditions are there for you to have a freedom to enterprise, for you to have. So that's what it is. Yet, when you look at that, you find that African nations are among the ones who provide the least economic freedom to people in the world. These are the places where people are the least free to enterprise. These are the countries that have the worst business environments for business. And remember what I said, if you don't make it easy for businesses to be born and grow, then the jobs that they would provide are not there. If those jobs are not there, the income that would be provided to people is not there. And if people don't have the income, they're poor. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is. Yet, I don't see anybody talking about this. But the few countries who focus on that on the continent are doing just fine, thank you very much. Mauritius is doing fine. Botswana is doing fine. You have also Rwanda now, thanks to the reform, trying to do this, is on its way to becoming a middle-income nation very soon. So my point is, if you wanna tell me that Africa is poor because of colonialism, my question then to you is what we just talked about. And when it comes to that, it's very clear that most African nations are not paying attention, because when you look at the Doing Business Index rankings, you look at all of these economic rankings showing how hard or easy it is to do business in the world in there, or taken another way, how nice are their business environment, how friendly are their business environments to business, you find that African nations are the worst. So then people come in like, oh, Thomas Sankara, he was doing this, Burkina Faso, and all of these so-called, liberators of the continent. There, I want to pause and say, I have such love in my heart for them wanting to see a liberated Africa. Mm-hmm. Julius Nyerere especially really cared, Tanzania. And Julius Nyerere but he's the father of African socialism. You see now where I'm going with all of this. So good intentions don't matter. So while I'm willing to harbor good feelings in my heart for people, especially like him, because I really believe that Julius Nyerere really believed that those were the way for us. So these people wanted to see a liberated Africa. That part of them, I will always celebrate. I feel grateful that people were fighting and saying that they believe we should be free. That part is great. But then it's the solutions that they embraced when it came to how are we going to make us economically successful. Almost all of them embraced Marxism. And you can't really blame them, because back in those days when most of our countries were coming to an age of emancipation, of independence, you were at the height of this, intellectual battles between the two greatest ideologies. On one end, freedom and liberty, that the West was promoting, and they were using capitalism as their economic system, facing off with the East, which was supporting various forms of statism. And so it was at that time where basically Marxists were facing off with the freedom and liberty type bloc, the West, and both sides were looking for influence, looking south, so the global south. And so us Africans, and I can only understand that, they said you were just coming out of the tail end of colonialism. They were fighting like with all the mighty that they had for freedom, especially inspired by Gandhi, who, did what he did. So when you're coming out, put yourself in their shoes, put yourself in the emotional state that they were. They didn't have a reflective, ability that you and I have today, all of these years after, to be thinking and to reflect. So they were, all of this was very raw. We've been enslaved, we've been then colonized by primarily the West. And so surely whatever it is that you're going to defend, we're not going to be for it. And on top of that, it is true that it was the Marxists of the time were the only ones who were fighting for racial equality.
Really?
Although Marx is a known racist, but the Marxists of the time were the only ones fighting for racial equality. So when you put that the Marxists have been fighting for racial equality when no one else was, but they probably were doing it also because, they found, just like Black Lives Matter, I'm sure we'll talk about it. So they were defending racial equality. On top of that, the West, were the colonizers. So you can understand that rejection of anything West. And on top of that, it is true that during those times, all respected intellectuals were also Marxist, including in the West. And so when you put all of those three things together, this is how, at its most important fork in the road, African leaders took the path of Marxism. And we never really reconsidered it. So the countries that didn't really follow that path, like Botswana and others, did much better. I argue that they could have gone further down the road of free markets, and they would have seen as big results, if not better, than Singapore or places like that. But it's still better than the rest of us. And so that's my argument right there. So when you want to talk to me about the Thomas Sankara, when you want to talk to me about the Julius Nyerere or Sankara, let's take Sankara, they say, oh, it's because he was doing so well that they killed him. There are other things at play there. And my other point is, and yet Sankara did not put in place economic freedom. So I am waiting for those leaders, because then, the Pan-Africanists are saying, oh, you're not being very realistic, or you have ill faith here. And I said, look, my thing is, you're always out there saying that anybody who is going to put us on the right track, supposedly the white people and the West is going to kill. Show me which one of these people who has really put in place economic freedom. Show me which one of them has really done it and has been killed. The president of Botswana, he did his terms, multiple terms, whatever he needed to do. They never had a coup, never had a civil war. As a matter of fact, Botswana and Senegal, my country, are the two countries in Africa that never had a civil war and never had a coup. So that guy was over there, and his country was doing extremely well, and nobody ever shut him down. So your argument of, well, every time we have somebody that's going to do good for us, it gets gunned down. I'm like, that doesn't stand either. The narrative that Africa is poor today because of colonialism, it's a lie. And the sooner we recognize it's a lie and free ourselves from it, the sooner we'll recognize that Africa is poor today because it is the most over-regulated region in the world.
Yeah.
And the minute we understand that, then it means we have to work on bringing economic freedom to Africa. And when it comes to that, I've been working on what we call startup cities. We call them Prospera cities, bringing prosperity. These are next generation special economic zones that have their own law, their own governance when it comes to business and business only. And with that, the goal is to bring on the continent zones that have business environments that are world-class and that could be ranked in the top 10 business environments in the world, up there with Singapore, Denmark, Hong Kong, places like that. That's what we're doing. And I believe that as we do this, prosperity will finally come to our shores and we will leapfrog ahead.
Well, hopefully more of these nations in Africa can learn their lesson and stop going towards Marxism. And same thing with here in Black America. It's like, learn your lesson, realize that Marxism has destroyed us every single time we've tried to utilize that philosophy for anything, and bring back prosperity. Because there's so many great minds out there, whether they're Black American or African, and there's so much human capital out there too.
That's the thing.
There's 1.3 billion at least people in Africa.
Yes.
And those people, you can't tell me that they all want to be in the situation that they're in.
No, absolutely not. So that's why I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, and I hope we can have another one, because I love this parallel that we can really design, you and I, between how Africa has been handled. The Black people in Africa, we represent 90% of the black skin color.
Wow.
Yeah, 90% of us are in Africa. So the rest of us are in America and places like Brazil for the most part, but we're scattered all over. So I think it's important for us to compare notes as to how the rest of the world has dealt with us, whether we're in Africa or outside of Africa, like here. And I believe it's the same. The movie has the same actors, the same villains, working supposedly on the same problem, using the same so-called solutions, and ending up on the same nothing to show for. And the script is very clear. And I think the soonest Black people everywhere understand that those who claim to be our friends are not our friends, the sooner we will get to the other side.
Amen to that.
Yeah. And the name of the game here is freedom. Freedom, freedom, freedom. If you believe in my freedom, if you believe that I'm a capable person, you'll give me freedom. And with that freedom, I will go to do what I need to do. But stop telling me that I am some type of victim that has no agency, and that without you and your benevolent, support, I will just be walked all over. When you're saying that to me, you're telling me that I'm not a full-on human being, and that's wrong.
I just want to give you because the crazy thing is I have all these questions, and it's like, as you're talking, I'm just like, well, that answered that question, that answered that question. So, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head with all of that, and I'm really grateful for your time here today. Where can people find you? How can people support you? What's your latest of many business ventures?
Where people can find me is easy. It's magattewade.com. There you can find all the things that I'm dealing with. And then also head over to skiniskin.com. That's our skincare company where we're creating great jobs in Africa, but most importantly is the best lip balm that you can find, and skincare and skin balms. And other than that, for everybody who wants to think big and dream big and dare big, follow our work with Prospera Africa. So it's Prospera-Africa on Twitter. But if you go to my website, you'll find it too. And there we're walking people through what we're doing and how we're going to get to the other side. And Xavier, I hope you get to come and visit us as well, and on our next trip on the continent, and that you can come back and maybe we can do a show there while you're there and just kind of go around and check it out and see what's going on. But it is time that African Americans and African immigrants get a better, and people back in home, we get to know each other better and bring the ties back. We are one family. There's no reason why we should be artificially divided the way we are right now. So I look forward to welcoming you back home.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm excited to go. One thing about me, I'll book a flight, so be careful inviting me somewhere.
I don't invite people I don't want to see, so I look forward to seeing you over there.
Sounds good.
All right. And thank you for this.
Cheers.
Cheers.